Hi again then guys, and welcome to another replica build on Gran Turismo 6, and this particular replica is of a concept version of the 6th generation Corvette. This is called the Z06X Concept, and it's essentially the Corvette equivalent of stuff like the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. It's that hardcore, stripped out, track focused version of what is already a great performance car. Now, this wasn't a production vehicle, it never passed the concept stage, but interestingly, the idea behind the Z06X is actually based on real Corvette packages which you can actually buy. It's actually a combination of 2 or 3 different packages put together, including the Z07 pack, which is a lighter version of the Corvette Z06. It's a very interesting car. It's a shame that they didn't produce a run of them, as say a limited edition, but either way, we can to some degree replicate the car on the game. Now, as far as the visuals, we've gone for the full carbon body kit, including the carbon fibre flat floor. You want the special rear wing. It's a pretty obvious wing, you can see it quite easily. And as far as the colour, I've actually gone for the pearl pearlescent white, which comes from the Nissan GTR Nismo. And it's a pure, clean-looking white, but with a kind of iridescent cream tinge to it, in a similar way to the actual Z06X concept car. I've also gone for that same colour for the brakes, and also for the rims I've gone for a colour called Ebony, which is a colour which I use quite a lot, comes from Jaguar, and it's one of the darkest blacks you can get in the game. It looks fantastic on pretty much any car you put it on. So that's it for the visuals. Now we'll go to, of course, the mechanical side of things, and then, as we always do, take it out to a racetrack, especially in the case of a car like this, to see if it actually shapes up as a hardcore track car. Now, incidentally, just before we get into the tune, I forgot to mention that the rims that I used on this particular car are Oz Ultralegeras, which aren't exactly the same as the real car's rims, but they look a similar style, kind of a minimalist, lightweight wheel, and they are the lightest rims you can get on the C6 Corvette in real life, so that's appropriate to the car. Now, for the setup on this particular vehicle, I wanted to go much more for an authentic feeling replica and something that would be fun to drive, rather than necessarily being rounded off to a PP level. Which is why, as you can see, it doesn't sit at, say, 550, 560, 575, which is what we usually try to do. But instead of that, I've gone for 567, which is basically just what it happens to be based on the Acura upgrades. Now, incidentally, to do this tune, I would recommend using an untouched Z06, because if you give it an oil change, you'll have to make some changes. If you have already got a Z06 without an oil change, you can still do it, and of course if you've done an oil change you can still achieve it. You'll just have to adjust the power limiter to basically stock power, because that's what the actual Z06X has. Now, we've gone for sport softs because although it is more track focused, it was still designed to be in essence a street car. As far as brakes, as I kind of hinted just now, they are upgraded. The real Z06X has carbon ceramic brakes, so in the case of this build it seemed appropriate to do that. For the suspension, we've dropped the ride height to 110, springs we've increased to 875 and 925, dampers and anti-roll I've left on 3, which may not seem that high, but that is higher than the standard settings. Camber and tow we've got neutral, but of course feel free to change those if you want to. I've opted to leave the stock gearbox as is on this particular model because, as I said, it is based on existing Corvette-based performance packs. It's not radically different in any particular way. As far as the diff on this particular car, especially in conjunction with the flat floor, you don't really need as extreme settings as you may sometimes have, say 60 on acceleration and braking. As you can see, I've gone for the lowest setting on all 3. But by all means, play around, change it if you know that you prefer it a different way. Of course, by all means go for that. As far as power, as I said, do nothing to it at all, not even an oil change if possible. And for the weight loss package, I would recommend a stage 1 weight reduction. I've also given it window weight reduction, and that's primarily not to do with necessity, but because the real Z06X has a polycarb rear window conversion, so that seemed authentic to me to at least make that change. Then you want to add 107 kilos of ballast, because the actual car is around 1390 kilos. I've opted to put that ballast 19% towards the rear, which gives it a slightly more rear-favoured 50-50 split, in a similar way to something like, say, an LMP car. You don't have to do that though, and as far as downforce, I'm running the maximum, which is still pretty minimal, but there you go. So that's it for the setup overall. Now let's take it out to a track. Now overall, of course, the car's running standard power, literally. The weight isn't that much lower, and the biggest change, I would say, to the vehicle is actually the flat floor, which makes a totally different handling signature available to a car like this. So overall, don't expect this to be a vehicle that's going to take on, say, GT3 cars anytime soon, but what it can do is offer a more hardcore track-focused twist on what is already a great performance car. So whether you use it for racing or just for fun, either way I hope you find it, of course, fun first and foremost. And if you're new to the channel, you can of course subscribe down below for more videos like this. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.